Hey guys, welcome back to the next podcast episode here. I'm going to be going over my thoughts with BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle and how I collectively view the game and see the game now in a year 3, year 4 onward setting compared to the first month / first year when I first the first few months and then into the first year when I first made my Instagram a synopsis about BBTAG when I first bought the game that year, like earlier 2021 is said, because 2022 was about the time when it got rollback or got the rollback update integration. So I'm going to go over my whole thoughts on this update. This is going to be a long talk that I'm going into about this, because this is also leading into a point in why there feels like there's a blunt but undertone stagnation with the community's actual social evolution that I'm kind of at the door at, or I'm at the iceberg. I just don't know how deep it goes, but I'm trying to see what it is I can grasp here in how not just my qualms and struggles trying to do whatever the hell I'm trying to do on that game, but also others that I can see and that I've interacted with that are on the same level as me or have seen the same things as I have, but don't know how to react, or they're just not as in tune with the community as they would potentially be, which I also understand. It depends on how you see the game or how you view the game of BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, whether or not you're going to be paying attention to the internal things about the game. So take a look, weigh in. There is going to be a second piece to this. I just have to figure out how I'm wording it and then carefully go into this with you guys. Everything and all my thoughts are my own, right?
Seen in me things I would never have seen. I don't understand why you care so much. It's all a mystery.
Okay, bookmark to this spot. So my entry into BBTAG started back in 2022, and PSN sale gamble, to be honest. It was a really cheap game at the time. I'm talking like barely $5 at the time. And it just had rollback announced the event before in the 2021 closeout. One of the events before, I think it might have been CEO. But it just announced rollback that was being integrated soon. And so it seemed like a great experience at the time in order to delve further into more congruently. There weren't really tournaments on PlayStation 4 that I was aware of at the time, so I had no reason to delve into learning the game any, and just played it to fill time that would amount to my $5 investment, kind of. People were met, and ideas exchanged towards what was the landscape of BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle in its net play era, and what it's becoming in its reborn state, or what it would become. I even hosted the premiere Iacon for console on the update patch that set everything in motion for the BBTAG section of my branding. That was back in 2022. That's a part of how I first met Serene Smile and Zuna and Sora Vermilion and the Unknown Weeb and his brother Moxley, the Hilda brothers. A month into it, I gave my initial thoughts on Instagram about the starting BlazBlue Cross Tag experience from a non-BlazBlue person coming into a new tag-based scene. I didn't expect to grasp all the introducing concepts to BBTAG, but I also didn't expect it to be so encompassing of mechanics and layering that felt so overly polarizing to a beginner on the grid. There's a set way to move or think before you might overthink. The pacing in the game forces you to commit to something and not think about everything per se for fear of overthinking. There are apparently starting characters your character or that you're supposed to be playing in some unspoken rule of whom are beginner friendly characters that you got to do research on in order to know, more than the ideal characters you're resonating towards because you like the characters, you like their designs, but they might not be beginner friendly themselves, thus making it hard to learn and play at the same time, fighting misinput over reaction against overly experienced players as your only source of sustenance in attaining value to the worth of the gameplay. Assists are used through neutral or as pokes per se, or disruptive jabs or confirms to extend your turn, taking options or challenging a negative play over just using them to extend combos, as other tag-based games would dictate such a narrative as the prior. Focusing the combo extension part is the starting Skullgirls DBFZ core construct that then expands into the same thing of more assists do and what they do as you climb levels in order to see the bigger picture of neutral and the game plan you're working with as your team, which then kind of speeds up the gameplay premise. That's why I was so shocked that this was the reverse process in this tag fighter of an immediate tech that's not so immediate in the priority of things you're supposed to grasp first. It's like a chain of command somewhat. The tag mechanics is the correct defining engine to the game that is important to the higher progress of one's team, or approaching and winning neutral, or pressure, or mixing, or setups, or set play, and resource management. There's a lot to it, so it's not the first thing people tell you about because it's an encompassing mechanic, nor is it the first thing you discover in the game. I'll tell you firsthand, the cross tag mechanic itself is not the first thing that the game shows you as an immediate fundamental resource to learn in the game. It's something later on once you get the chaos out of the way of what you're even supposed to do first. The game tells you this concept way later on down the road in the tutorial process if you get that far. Very thorough in a way, absolutely. But it doesn't push it at you. That's the trade-off of the social gaming engagement. I love the fast-paced nature of the game and its set depth with that sense of momentum. I love how so many teams are in sync with the mechanics or the player or both. Apart from competing in the field to discover this, I love the fact it's almost a new character at the center of every encounter every time. There's a character specialist in every minor or major way in the community, barring maybe one or two exemptions. What I didn't like was the entry ceiling. I loathed, and I still do really hate this. I hate the constant, unrelenting nature of the game. Its system and the momentum-based combat. It's the drawback of a fast-paced gameplay. And so it's how you expect after a while, but in the early stages in trying to learn this game and get used to it, it's very constantly unforgiving about everything you do and everything you want to commit to. You can be right and wrong at any time, even making the right decisions, and it's just constantly frustrating. It really feels like a off game, but as I go. I dislike the combo inconsistency because it could always drop at an unsuspecting time, and it costs a game doing so. I dislike the blunt, inconsistent response times to games or lobbies. While understanding it likely has to do with obscure factors, just being that people just randomly pop up at some benign hour to either seek games or else just talk about it outside the game, but not engaging with it, just the discussion portion. Or people not playing you or hardly engaging because of who you are or what your value is, or not being in this off-screen clique by social association, and I'll circle back around to this later in my thesis. Coming into this years ago, I was fine with the growing pains of playing the game and never winning because I was always thinking, learning, and adapting. I come from a past tag title where this was a thing throughout all of its eras. Now, years later, after getting a hard feel for most things to game sense except combo mechanics, it's just seeing a veil to how top tiers are incorporated in every player's style of choice or variety to allow viability of what you're playing and thinking, not just the competitive, but generally. And you know or you don't know and get knowledge checked, or you know, make the right choice and possibly still get hoed in one itty bitty detail that falls into that aforementioned momentum region I was talking about rather hardly, or experiencing something not planned or unscripted and have to gamble and see what happens, or being right and you're good, or being right and yet still being wrong, or being wrong and getting lucky to pull it all back. That one last one I just said, in a game as nutty as this, you'd be surprised, is a fairly interesting skill to have. It pivots freely into a constant, like, so close but so far ideology to the grind, to always be right there and never be concretely anywhere till you kind of sort of hoe your first opponent for the giggles of how the match happened, and it just takes off from there. It's kind of fucked getting into BBTAG as a new person so late in the game, but the funny part is that there are occasional new heads that do pop up and kind of just get thrusted into the middle of an adaptive uphill struggle. There's also weird instances, more common than you think, where the higher level players and mid-level players are doing the same monkey tactics and taking notes from each other. It's like the joy and the wonder of pressing buttons is always abundant with this game, no matter how old it is. That's a noticeable detail I'm always seeing, and I kind of like that as a redeeming aspect to tag. I don't have a problem with it. It's just a very interesting redeeming aspect. So, recapping the general game plan and approaching this game circles back around to your familiarity with characters, familiarity with nutty, cursed situations that will happen a lot, or game sense to keep up, not always show up, and attempting to have setups or a game plan, knowing your opponent actually won't respect a lot of this shit as the match continues to go on. They're just going to keep doing more monkey shit as you reveal how you want to punish all that monkey shit. You want to be open-minded coming into BBTAG. You have to really have like thick skin physically and mentally coming here. This is something no one tells you when you first start off. It's something you have to experience for yourself to gauge your time continuing or just experimenting, or maybe both. The mix of these factors were just what drove me to dislike the game the more I played it, despite the advice given of just play BBTAG more, which is terrible advice some associates gave me at the times. Just because I'm better now or better off now supposedly doesn't mean I hate the game or its system or systemics any less by this point. Also, it's the lack of a true beginner-friendly area on console in the early stages, that killed the love of the game for me. It was constantly polarizing here and generally one-sided with no real way to spot or see growth, despite how much people would tell you that you're growing or that they see growth. You're just moving from ass-whipping to ass-whipping, and you're supposed to be okay with it because it's under the guise of you're learning. Like, how do you evolve a play style or fix a craft or edit it that doesn't get to flourish at all in a no-balanced match experience? You don't fight people at your level. You fight only the highest level around for the day, and that's it. You have to take it or leave it. Beginner-based tournaments try to patch up that problem area, but the problem in that note is that beginner-friendly comp settings don't exist on PlayStation. They only exist on PC. And that derails the momentum structurally with a huge lacking. Additionally, the only set beginner-friendly area to play at, debatably, was probably TMN, Training Mode Network, and that's a PC-exclusive area of investment. That's horrible as fuck. Like, that's seriously horrible as fuck. I understand why, coming into the game, from the organizer's perspective, is the fiscal dice roll, turning into a slightly profitable investment for the scene you're passing through or catering to. As the competitor, and from the competing aspect both, I don't like that in this regard there, and why there's very little constraints set up by the community for the community to bridge those blunt gaps that both time and the later implementation of Rollback's online upgrade wasn't totally kind to for the player base's sake. There's a hypothesis I've had about this visually blunt competitive cultivation gap that I was researching on GameFAQs.com and BlazBlue Reddit from the earlier vines that Renix and Zycoon sent me. So I want us to look at Plus Frames GG. This is Crackin Atkins branding, right? Crackin Atkins hosted both PC and PSN in a semi-rotation of titles correlating to his interests or investment. One of the two. He hosted Melty Blood or Unist and Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising. I know all this because I've competed in all of those past circuits. And I know that he came from here. This was before I actually had a chance to personally know him. So I heard in the early years of possibly catering to BBCF, that was Central Fiction. So let's assume for the sake of relevance, he did house that too in the mix. My hunch is along the lines of Kraken's having attempted to house a beginner's level assessment on console for BBTAG in an early effort to bridge that deadened gap. The speculation wasn't heard of in the rollback state, so perhaps it's passed amidst the netplay era of the game. However, I see why it couldn't gain ground despite being a very good and prosperous idea to the nurturing aspect this game needed and was deprived of, because it was during a dark point in the game's lifespan that people couldn't get behind or didn't support in delay-based netplay when it died out the first time. Why am I painting such a picture? It's because with Crackin Atkins, it's among my thought that he's the few people in this community that doesn't give up on an idea's push just because the initial support seemed too lacking or non-existent. It's only when the established support is inconsistent or lacking or lost altogether will he put on a hiatus an idea or retire it completely. Again, I don't know if it's true or not, but I would believe it more than if I was told that Master Chief or Church or Red 30 had hosted for netplay simply because of his pattern. There were times where Undernight 2 and Melty caved in getting nobody on board to play too many times to where he just removed the option supporting the platform altogether, and logically the platform's representation was lost in this equation. I was there when he gave up hosting Melty Blood because there wasn't people that signed up for Melty Blood. I was there when Uni 2, and me, Wash, and a few other people advocated to keep Uni 2 on PlayStation because Wast had retired hosting it on PlayStation at this time. And respectfully, he dismissed that idea. And as saddened as I was, I do have to respect his wishes. It's his billing, it's his programming. But I could believe that this was the case in BlazBlue's scene, even if the community deems PSN its most active platform compared to PC and Xbox Live, and has the least amount of issue managing activities between the latter. It's still summing up to involvement and hypocrisy, where we have heard, well, honestly, we've heard that same song and dance before in the FGC, so that I wouldn't be surprised if that shit's here, and it's just casually swept under a rug that I'm kindly finding. Like, people will love it enough in order to play it when it matters, but not when it doesn't. And in that importance is in the eye of the beholder. It exposes the community in terms of like who really gives a damn for these scenes versus who has the time to play for these scenes or play in them versus who just cares about the money that also happens to be really good at the game. It can even be a messenger versus messagee effect. And it has to do with who's hosting that gets you to do anything at all, or who's deemed important. Like, it should be anybody honestly giving a damn to host for some crappy ass game like this, as old as it is, because it's keeping BBTAG alive, but it's not. It also has to do with specific people given some type of a modern relationship passed by the people. These factors are considerable when it comes to full-on community engagement, right? Like, also, the community activity and the survival depend on the engagement from the diversity it's catering to. It's a cycle or a circuit, per se. It's not always seen to for the scene's prosperity as Plus Frames or Railfire Legion RFL or Intertwining Fates Lives will most times attest to. A lot of these are, in fact, from engaged observations and competing in all of those circles and engaging with people in all of those circles to familiarize myself with those areas. Like the whole atmosphere or its own patch of the Blaze Blue pie. I believe seeing this is worth more than a set mood that guides people's interest to even know of different scenes, let alone travel to them. That's the part that's kind of sad to me. It's not always because people didn't advertise it enough or people didn't advertise what the brand was in order to introduce it into the ecosystem of Blaze Blue. It's not always that. It's more so that people didn't want to discover you or didn't want to help your lens expand reach in the ecosystem. So even if they don't give a damn, they can reach other people that do. That way you keep this fucking game here. You keep this game enriched for people that want to press buttons on this fuck shit. At first glance from the start, it's not a big deal because you're already in the grind. Once you're in the waters of the community, you see why it feels like a waste of time outside a set amount of people or the total list that already is a part of your encompassed following or intrigue right here that the investment had paid off towards. And it's outside the set amount of people who did take the time to enrich your scene or probably join it for the further opportunity. Even considering it's an old game, blah, 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 the ratio in that isn't impressive. It's depressing because most of your peers in the latter end of your efforts just don't care or autopilot interactions till they see your worth as a whole to the scene. And this is the next thing I feel its players and hosts are looking at is community worth. And so factors such as how much do you play BBTAG? How often do you host BBTAG? What got you into a game like BBTAG? How much do you know about the game if you play? Are you good or think of yourself as good? How much money do you have? How chill is this person on a tilt fest like BBTAG? Who do you know in these scenes? These points, more or less, people are looking for or they're looking at as you socialize and evolve throughout the scene. And people can say that this isn't true. It's actually true. They're just bullshitting you. Everybody in the scene is looking at this at some point or another, which helps determine an innate sorting system that they're not telling you, but you're going to be very slowly experiencing depending upon who you're talking to or in some sense who you're allowed to talk to or interact with socially, or they don't feel weirded out talking to you or socializing with you or seeing who you're around the most to get an ideal picture from afar who you are or what you're about rather than just talking to your ass and getting it over with in a more direct and meaningful manner. It's like some indirect social labeling sorting system. People don't tell you this stuff. This is just how people classify you in circles and whatnot behind your back that you don't know about. And then I look back at, tournaments, of course. Like, BBTAG tournaments are still rotating in some type of a scheduled abundance between a setup of convenient times and off timing randomly popping up, so I just indulge as I'm able to. First time in a while I'm actually sick of competing in the one game, and yet competition is the only definitive grind where I can see progress at a shitty pace. 2025, I've been grinding them all through the latter half of the year to convince myself I could do this choppy 2v2 shit, and its results have been telling me a truthful facade. While adaptive, yes, I'm not as strong as I need to be by now. Debatably, I'm only as strong as expected in that sense. Only visually competent in detail to react, break down, or process a simple layering or the simple process of layering on the game. 3 years playing on and off have yielded no true change and evolution towards the betterment of my grind, just to slow down the inevitability of a still decision, not to sway it fully just yet. I believe I can assert myself to be vastly more powerful than I am, like I do on other games countless times. But it's getting past the boredom of long-term play and trying to force myself to be in the lab when the Discord servers just verbally die out randomly that are my key problems to work around or work out. The community doesn't really seem self-aware a lot of the time, not to me anyways, but I'm aware that the community's own inconsistency of ping or committed follow-ups of sitting pings just degrade the set value then of wanting to resume playing. So the solution is to force myself to play around these needless elements. I take it with a grain of salt, but it lessens my impression of the game and its community both. Then the countless times I ping for games right as people are abundantly seeking games, but people aren't coming to me or my ping. They're right here. They're literally right here doing the same shit before I was doing this. Like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes before I pinged for the same thing. And this isn't a few instances of some misunderstanding. It's a vague, recurring social interaction, and it pisses me off talking with BlazBlue people. I don't need to take this shit from players better than me with direct or indirect disrespectful nodes of their attitudes and impressions at those times. Like you need to dumb down what you're doing for me to keep up, or feel like you're too much for me to handle at my level. I don't need that shit. I didn't come here for all of that from some nobodies. These matchmakings aren't in smaller servers. In that regard, if it was a smaller server, then I'd expect a whole bunch of detached shit like this, because they're unserious about actually playing the game. They're just there to benefit whoever else is there. This is the main BBTAG server. These are the main BBTAG servers where it's supposed to matter most that people are playing or communicating, like Don Khan's server or Intertwining Fates. Like, I'm social with people, yes, but I also know people that aren't always social with me, and I have to deal with that, and that's fine, I guess. It's how they are, and how you come to know people in the scene you go to. Those people. I'm also very blunt with people sometimes because I have nothing in common with you or no direct tie to your emotional concern. Some people don't mean it. There are times where you clearly miss interaction with another person and you get it next time. I get that. I understand that and I respect that. Others, however, I feel do inadvertently snub my pings or skip over them altogether on purpose in order to feel better about themselves. I'm not even trying to call them out about doing better, or I'm not trying to call you out, but you are being an ass for petty reasoning that's only sensible to who again? And who cares? Like, you only get games if it's immediate. Like, after like a 5-minute wait maybe. And then they might move on to something else, from what I've seen. Overall, like, moving on to the next immediate queue or dismissing the prior, that's telling me more than enough people have a short attention span or impatient as fuck about trying to wait for a game in this community. Like, every tourney prep day, it's just dead. Then it's alive during the event. Every event prep or activity or 1 versus 1, whatever it is hosting a stream that's deemed important that day, it's dead. Then it's alive during the stream and during the event. Casual ping at a sensible damn time instead of some godforsaken hour. It's dead, but somehow it's alive at the ass crack of 3 a.m. in the morning. This pitiful ass scene sometimes really just pisses me off. And some of these servers are either brain dead or on the point of matchmaking or promote some stuck-up engagement, or it's pre-built for some hollow take on competitive natural selection, or it's even all three as far as I know. The BBTAG's betterment of inclusion isn't writing on this, but its inconsistency of nurturing elements to unfamiliar PvP people is feeding this same avenue, and it doesn't help their case of survival or in an inviting expansion process. All that shit tells me is that people just hop online and do random shit, and it supposedly works. Nobody thinks about you or thinks about the whole person-to-person prep to be ready for tourney play. You just play and optimize off of settled and expected habits. I don't think that's a good thing at all, but a lot of players do that with mixed results attached to it, so I can't really say. Like, it's all doing the same thing for me, and that's repelling me from really deep diving further into BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle because there's no point. I only want to deep dive if there's a point to it. No consistent games will award inconsistent results, clearly. Growth of any sort is literally at the mercy of other people's interest to play right now or not ever. I hate that shit. You can grab a friend and play over dealing with that crap, but it's still here in matchmaking, quote unquote matchmaking, to deal with just because it's not you. Or the next guy doesn't say anything, or people really autopilot these interactions with no thoughts on the exchange. It's just a part of the landscape. That doesn't help anything. No, it's not deserving of that. The game itself is a wonderful experience despite how I feel having been more established to it. The BBTAG game is a process to learn and improve on for actually seeing improvement all the time. The BBTAG community is a process to either tolerate or separate or differentiate of the two for improving interactions and the returning engagement. Much of what I was saying circles back to how these two things, while very different, are parallel for a person to really get anything from playing BBTAG. I talk a good amount about the game and what it tries to do, and what the BBTAG community leaders are trying to do, each, well, for its people that I can see or that I can feel. I'd just be varying on insightful conversations to talk about its people unless I know better or I know of things otherwise obscured. But there's nothing wrong with this game that will require me to talk bad about it. I love to talk and indulge on the games, that way I can better understand what it is. Would I quit BBTAG again? You know, it's crossed my mind a lot to just go back to what I know best and resume seeking my championship run on Dragon Ball Fighters. But doing so also discredits my self-worth, returning to a comfort zone just because shit's seemingly too hard or impossible to see growth or to try to go further in this adventure. This is another tag-based game in the pool of my craft, my specialty. So it's important to be well versed in its game sense and grid compared to a DBFZ or Skullgirls or some other tag-based adventure. Keyword is well versed, not amazing at it. I have nothing to prove to people here, only to myself that I can contest and achieve for greatness here like the set inhabitants of the general BlazBlue scene before my arrival. It stays a trying process though. I'm not going to say it's not been difficult or hasn't been a constant hardship to try and see some type of success, because I don't want anything given to me. I want to make sure that I continue earning it. And it stays constantly impossible for this game. That would naturally drive a person away, but I am still here and I'm still fighting. Not really, no. Not a single thing about the equality factor I really like about BlazBlue Cross Tag's community, but I understand some of what each patch of the BBTAG landscape has to offer and what they're doing or not doing. Smaller scenes have a survival and inclusion issue that's not easily helped. Bigger scenes have a dog-eat-dog business approach. There really isn't a middle ground, ideally speaking. There's no real accessibility for new players to learn without seeing the game's hardships first and then the sensibility of why that is later. Thus, it runs them off in a very polarizing cause and effect before they adapt to it or adapt around it or are shown better by the scene. Not everybody is a teacher at some bullshit fest like BBTAG, and that has to be taken to heart when going into a lot of detail with characters or play styles or reviews and shit. Not everybody can teach you shit. You can't instruct neutral or how to play generally if you're stuck playing a specific way and that character or characters helps to enhance that whole PvP exploitation that you kind of casually bullshit off of. Players that can't adapt different play styles or haven't played a character more than one way really shouldn't be trying to teach people how to grasp only one side of a whole character's concept or identity. Not just one side and not another side that you don't like or doesn't do anything for how you like to play, or you don't like the way that said person plays and you're trying to shift them to what you like to deal with or what you like to play against, which is, it doesn't help them. It only helps you in trying to beat them more because you don't like the way they play, over helping them to clean up aspects of their already existing set play style so it kind of shines better to their strong points, patching up the shit that you don't want in your play style, shining on what does work with your play style. And then the scene has a vague or polarizing sitting hypocrisy about money or expectation with events. Some parts of it is an undertone, other parts of it are very blunt. There's a lot of things that are done in the BBTAG scene that I don't try to directly question, but I know that not everything aligns correctly because everything is split up into like different territories or some shit. I'm trying to think on how I could better explain it, but I can't right now. Managing my time. Well, when it comes to this, I just pick carefully whom I can sit comfortably the best with and stay to them only. That's determined by how social people actually are when nothing's at stake, or there's no events going on, or no one of a linking interest is present. And by a linking interest, I mean people that we have in common. A linking interest is someone that you have a common interest with, or a mutual friend. Like people that were only introduced to you, or you're only introduced to them because of the one person, and you have to have them there as a social medium in order to engage or start or navigate conversations instead of just doing it yourself. When those people aren't around, and this results to, well, not a lot of social atmosphere in the public space to really venture into. I have to understand that jokes or some ideas or concepts that are easily understood by me or people in my age group aren't generally shared here. And that's okay. This is a scene for younger players here, like Gen Z into Gen Alphas that typically roam these parts of BlazBlue. So I have to almost embrace the clique ideology, staying to the few people that I click with all the time to be comfortable in a comfortably desolate area, if that makes sense. Like, people are social, absolutely, but at the same time don't really want to get to know you depending on your starting introduction or the lasting impression of said introduction. Or they pivot back around to what they have in common mainly, and then that's the whole highlight of the interaction. If that highlight that they focus or that they value doesn't align with yours, then that depreciates them trying to engage with you because that holds priority to them, not the priority of civil social. This boils down to the balance and the wanting to still do something here despite the waning interest to be on the game, to talk with different people and play styles and interact with different play styles that don't want much to do with you at times, or talk to the same people in my own spaces to get somewhere with PvP, but not that much farther than I could have done with the latter. I understand I'm not really a BBTAG player in this sense. I'm a Dragon Ball FighterZ player that knows BBTAG a decent amount. And so going to BBTAG is a daily test of patience, awareness, emotional control, resolve, and PvP hunger each time I decide to boot the game up. That's not expected to be understood right away or at all by players here. Half of them don't even know me or know who the hell I am, despite always being in most VCs to interact with people or mingle initially. But I stay open-minded because not everyone's the same. Now, that does and doesn't work after a while. In an expressive gridiron like this, everyone and everything plays or operates differently than a set template that you're being accustomed to at a gradual rate, the more you're familiarizing yourself with your choice characters and toolkits and game sense. One person can only shift so much of their style of play to mimic another person, but it can't actually be that one other style. You have to experience it personally to understand that person's way of thinking in the opposition, or why they do this shit the way they do, or why it's so annoying, or why it's so clean. There's a lot of BBTAG players with clean or sporadic or crazy or monkey ass or precision based or patient based play styles, and you have to play them all in order to better understand how to deal with it in real time, how you're supposed to deal with it. People will tell you, but you don't get it. One person could explain it, but without hands-on experience, you're not going to grasp anything at all of their meanings in order to adjust to it, or any adjustments per se. That's why I hate it when players refuse matches, yet you have to play them in tournaments or events, and they play like an asshole to you the whole time. It annoys me for the right reasons that you can understand. And if you know, you know. Yeah, WNF in the Grand Prix. So I haven't really thought that far ahead fully yet. I've been partially focusing on the Grand Prix and Wednesday night fights, amidst some sense of balancing with life and home care really challenging that daily ritual of progress. I know past that setting, past Grand Prix, I aim to resume delving into Street Fighter 6 very slowly for my own competitive betterment. I have been going hard on this game in this tournament event because I want to place the one time in the Big 8 or in the WNF where the odds are even down the middle right now. There's a handful of players that are even like taken out of their comfort zone to adjust to the different weekly themes between either being Blaze Blue only or Unist only or Persona theme only or Unist only. And I want to try and take advantage of that so that way I can get a ticket somewhere. It increases the odds of pulling this off because of those set stimulations in order to keep it to a set theme throughout the Grand Prix. Once I do and I get that out of the way, I can kind of just put it to rest from that point forward because it's no longer important to try and do it one single time. The way it's looking right now with no consistent training partner that's really staying to practice, it's not really happening anytime soon, but I'm not giving this up just because it looks like it's over. It's only over till it's over, or if I give up. When I don't give up, then the shit's still able to be achieved. Things happen. Shit happens. Results are always subject to change. It's been affecting a lot of positivity in wanting to resume playing the game still, because there's always a whole lot of unrelenting... trying to think on how to explain it. It's a lot of disappointment in being right and trying to lab so much shit and you're still wrong because it's just bullshit. And I just can't do it. I can't deal with that shit, but I have to deal with it in order to play this stupid ass game. I know I can use the break on my own terms coming up because I don't really want a lot to do with Blaze Blue past a set point of all this continual weekly grinding to breathe and put some of this behind me so that way I can actually appreciate what growth has actually happened over the year. I think probably a good pivot to a casual story game or some writing is long overdue for me and my peace, so I can reset off the radar, and then I can probably come back into it later on down the line. So everything I talked about, everything is subject to change depending upon how my relationship with the BlazBlue cross tag community evolves or depreciates over time. At this point, it should still generally be evolving. I'd be reaching a point where I probably just want to take a long break from the game again. Not so much quit it, but just a break from just grinding the same thing to not really see a major boost of results, but more or less a gradual one. And then a lot of the stuff I talked about with the finite points with the community goes back into either the whole relationship pass with the fighting game community and what your worth is seen as versus how you present your worth, and the receiving end of that engagement when they see your worth, and how you help better yourself, or how you can better establish relationships in the scene where people can probably help the betterment for what you're working towards, or can help practice with you in order to help make you a better player, or can have better social dealings when seeking matchmaking and shit. I mean, some of that is probably just bad timing, but most of it isn't bad timing in my experiences. But shit can change over time. I don't know if it'll change right now, but it'll change over time. Alright, but I'll see you guys in the next one here. There is still more I want to delve into with a few of these points. Just have to figure out where and how I'm trying to delve into this exactly, because there's a deeper aspect with understanding the lack of the beginner ratio and the understanding of the loss of the advanced ratio in the community balance, the gene pool for BlazBlue cross tag battle that I can see, but I'm trying to figure out how to properly present it. Anyway, I'll get back to my whole mental vat right there. You guys take care. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave them down below. And tune in for the next podcast episode, whenever that is, or whenever I decide to share some of my thoughts, or anybody else that comes along that also wishes to share those thoughts.